Welcome back, people of the pod, to a special emergency podcast of Office Hours with Karpf and Loge. You missed us. You missed us.
I missed us.
Aw. That's only because you've been on sabbatical, busy writing a book. Plug
Yeah,
it.
so I want people to understand every couple months something will happen in the news, and one of us will text the other and say emergency pod question mark. And it is usually me because you have a more serious job than I do and are a more serious person. And you'll usually be like, that's a great idea, but no. And then I don't know, something happened in public events, and I was like, emergency pod, and you were like, fine. And so
Well,
here we are.
I think my response was, I'm not sure that what America needs is one more hot take. But yet,
Yes, you said, I don't know if America needs another hot take from like two over opinionated white guys that you said, when do you want to do it?
yeah, this is, I feel like but here we are. Here we are. If you've lasted this long, you're stuck for the next half hour because we know who you are. So I have to tell you. So we're talking about stuff and things, and I have to tell you the way I found out Biden was dropping out was I was puttering in what passes for a backyard in Adams Morgan, not dressed as I am now. My phone rings, and it's a television producer in New Zealand saying Biden just dropped out. Can you be on air in 5 minutes? Like, wait, what? Give me seven. Threw on what passes for a clean shirt, set up what passes for the Zoom room, got on Google and holy cats, and was learning in real time on New Zealand television. And the newscaster said, so Biden praised Harris but didn't endorse her. Why do you think that might be? I was in the middle of answering. She said, wait, hang on, I have to interrupt you. Biden just endorsed Harris. It's been this last 48, 72 hours have been a heck of a couple of weeks.
Yeah, this is this has been something. So why don't we first let's rewind, because it's like it has been a long, what, 3.5 weeks, right? The debate happens.
Yeah.
Going into the debate, Biden is trailing, but like I'm pretty confident he's going to pull it off. And this is partially because the thing that I personally was confident in was that the caricature of Biden as just too old and doddering, which had been trotted out by the Republican Party and often amplified by mainstream media, particularly the New York Times, that has been pissed at him for not giving interviews. Um, like what I thought after the State of the Union address was like, this actually works out great for him because every time he goes on stage, that is this low bar that he's able to vault over. And debate does not go well, and suddenly it seems like we have a problem. But it's also a problem that only gets solved if he decides to step down. And we get 3 weeks of people doing more and more public pressure to get him to step down, which is either going to result in this unprecedented thing that just happened, or is going to result in a further weakened campaign. Because if he stays in, it's a campaign where everybody knows that an awful lot of the Democratic Party wished he would drop out. What are your reactions like? What were you thinking a week ago, and what do you think now?
Well, I mean, both of us were predicting that Biden was the nominee. So of course Biden's going to run. Of course Biden's going to be the nominee. Of course he's going to be. And I was doing C-SPAN's pregame show in front of the debate. I said, really, each is just hoping the other's a caricature of themselves, that Trump is going to go off into loony land and that Biden was going to be seen gumming his jello. Little did I know. And I thought, but he's staying in, right? My line, as you know, for a year has been, you don't spend all night fighting for a seat at the bar and go home after one beer. And up until really about a couple of days before, I thought this might actually work, because once then Speaker Pelosi gets involved, she's going to win. I've been in meetings with Nancy Pelosi, and the most important thing to know about her is that her dad was mayor of Baltimore. Like, you do not mess with Speaker Pelosi. And then it was a question of when, not if. And as he said, the Democrats spent 3 weeks telling the American people that the president was old, out of touch, and ineffectual, which is kind of the Republicans' job, I feel like. It's very generous of the Dems to do it. But at some point, they had to move on to a different argument, which is where we are.
Do you think that was a mistake, or do you think that was the right call?
Biden dropping out?
Yeah, or the 3 weeks of the Democrats setting this up.
I think it did not help the Democrats to spend 3 weeks doing this. If Biden were going to drop, he should have done it a year ago. But it's pretty clear, once he got COVID, then it was pretty clear, because for a couple of reasons. One is then you get time alone, right? And you have to reflect, and I don't know, because you don't get a lot of time to think if you're a president of the United States. Then it's an easy off ramp. So, I should be out on the campaign trail, but I can't be because that would be irresponsible, and America can't afford to not be engaging in this debate. And it's kind of an easy ramp. And I think my understanding is Mrs. Pelosi and Senator Schumer are making it pretty clear that he goes quietly into this good night, or he gets beaten into this good night.
Mhm.
And he took the noble route. What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, the thing that stands out to me is like it, there was always an actuarial risk in his campaign,
Right.
right? And the risk was both he could pass away, which can happen to anybody, but becomes more likely as you get older, but also that the effects of aging could catch up with him, right? And on the night of the debate, one of the things that I wrote was like this could be one of two things. This could have just been a bad night that happens to amplify the caricature, or it could be a sign that he's starting to age quickly after being resilient. I mean, at the State of the Union, he was in much better shape,
Yeah.
and that was a thing that I couldn't get any visibility into from where I stand. Of is this a one-off and he's going to be better from here on out, or actually is it going to be tough going because this is a sign. um and so I spent the next 3 weeks kind of waiting to see that from the politicians who actually are face to face with him, what does it look like to them, because they can tell the difference between those two things. My read of this, again, I don't actually know, but it seems like the reason that this came to pass is like Pelosi, Schumer, people who really believe in the job he has done as president,
Yeah.
they weren't just freaking out at polls. I think they were looking at him and saying, aging is starting to catch up with you, and that is going to make it impossible to beat the caricature that's already been laid on you. This isn't going to work. Like if it was just the polling, then I think that's cowardly. But it seems like there's probably a little more to that. And in that case, yeah, it would have been nice if we dropped that a year ago. But there was an actuarial bet. Once it was clear it wasn't paying off, and it wasn't too late, they went ahead with it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think Biden was trying to run out the clock pretty clearly because at some point the convention happens. But the other part is something that you and I talked about in the old days of the podcast is people think in stories, right? And we have a narrative, and the narrative follows a line. And like Biden isn't that much less coherent now than he was 10 or 15 years ago. Since then, it was Uncle Joe saying nutty things. The Onion had an entire page devoted to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
But now it's, oh, he's old and slowing down. Now he's saying these nutty things because he's old and slowing down. And that quickly became the narrative. I had a conversation with a Republican operative recently who was talking about this and saying that, people talk about how Biden can't finish a sentence and he's always tripping over his tongue. And he said, had anybody not listened to the old Biden? Like, this is just Joe Biden.
Yeah.
But now the story becomes, oh, well, take the keys away from grandpa. He shouldn't be driving at night. But now we're like, it's a whole new. I do want to point out that because you and I have been calling Biden in ride or die, the Democrat, he's going to stand. Once again, we've proven Phil Tetlock right that political experts are terrible at making political predictions, which again proves how smart we are. Which I want to point out that our failure to call this proves we are in fact experts, according to.
I agree with you that is the type of expert that you are. Um, I will not, like, I've been doing writing about this on the Substack, and the thing that I have been saying in a series of posts was essentially, I would prefer he drop out. I think Kamala Harris would be a better candidate. If he drops out, it's got to be Kamala Harris. But I don't think he's going to do that.
Right.
Right, and that was based on a read. Essentially, for the first like week and a half after the debate, I thought there was a real window, and it was when AOC announced, "Hey, I spent the day with him, and I'm telling you, he's running. We got to back him." Like I kind of figured, okay, that means that she looked into the guy's eyes and said, "He's not going anywhere. We've got to shore up this campaign. It's a weaker campaign, but stop poking more holes in the ship because it's the only one. It's the only one we're going to have." So the fact that they quickly went to Harris, like, I'm not saying that I called this, I didn't call this, but the thing that I didn't call was, I think he's going to be too stubborn. Like I was saying, I think he's going to be too stubborn, even though I wish he wouldn't be. I am deeply glad and relieved that he made this choice. I think we're better off.
Excuse me, we'll see, right? I mean, um, this isn't a series of experiments, right? Our colleague Ethan Porter runs political experiments. We're going to run this campaign. We're going to go back and run it again and again.
Right.
If Harris loses, that doesn't mean Biden would have won. If Harris wins, that doesn't mean Biden would have lost. What it means is Harris won or Harris lost, and it's everybody's desperately going to, do once again what Phil Tetlock says, which is you insert your favorite reasons into whatever happened to prove that you were right all along. Yeah. And no one has anybody who says they know what's going to happen next is lying, delusional, or both. This is way brand new. It's wild.
So you're right. And also, while we're talking about delusional, during the past 3 weeks, as this has been going on, there has been a story emerging, like a sub story emerging about if he backs down, here are the wild ways that they could handle the convention to pick a nominee. This culminated the day that he announced with Aaron Sorkin saying, "Yeah, like here's how I would script it," and he ended with, they should nominate Mitt Romney." Because as we all know, Mitt Romney really good at winning presidential campaigns, I guess.
Right,
Um,
right.
and even as there's been this groundswell for Kamala, and as we're recording this, she already has enough pledged delegates to become the nominee. That went real smooth. She also raised over $81 million in the first 24 hours. Like it's coming together quick, but we still have the editorial board of the Washington Post, a bunch of writers at the Atlantic and elsewhere, insisting that this is too quick, and what America and the Democratic Party really needs is an open contested convention. What do you think of that idea?
Like, no, just no, stop. Right? Nobody cares. Nobody, the people who care about the Democratic National Committee Rules Committee are confined to the people paying attention to this podcast. American people think that politics is bad theater as it is. They're not. Well, I would put gas in the car, but I'm going to track the rules committee and the delegate count. It's live on AP. No, like get enough. The Americans want stuff fixed, and all of this theater. Like, oh my gosh, and it's not right. Delegates select the nominee. The American people don't get to select the nominee. That's not how this goes. Parties decide their rules. There could be a political party. I think it'd be a fun party. You and I should start this party. You select the nominee based on a round robin of rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, but let's modify that, because I ethically believe you should always throw a rock. So anyone who doesn't throw a rock is disqualified.
Rock, throwing rocks and rock, paper, scissors. That doesn't mean actually throwing paper and scissors and rocks at each other. It's a whole ask your children. But it's yeah, a bunch of people voted for Biden and had given the chance, maybe in a parallel universe, they'd vote for Harris or somebody else who would have ran. They didn't. Biden said, "I'm not the guy. You got to pick somebody." Delegates went, "All right," and here we go. Like, let's just get on with it.
Yeah. Well, and so there's two things I want to add to that. One is, while these are unprecedented times, and you're right that no one knows what's going to happen next, we can still look around and be like, okay, but that's a dumb idea. Like that's right. Like it's like there are in fact some stupid questions, right? The model that is behind that is this idea of like reality television. Oh, the United States, like the public would be so entertained and engrossed in the drama of who is the nominee going to be, and so impressed by the sort of the parade of democracy that would result. And the most obvious evidence against that is, as you noted, he announced that he was stepping back. Half an hour later announced, "And I'm back in Kamala." And over the next 24 hours, the entire party said, "We're in favor." And not just the party elites, but the entire like $81 million in the grassroots base, right? I read online that about 60% of those were first-time donors.
And
Right?
800,
What the Democratic base deeply wanted was a candidate, please. And the idea that we should wait a month because it would make for some fun TV, like not only is that not what the delegates wanted and not what party leads wanted, that's not what the grassroots wanted. The grassroots wants to beat Donald Trump,
right,
is excited to have Kamala Harris as the nominee for that, so that they're no longer bogged down by the weight of, is Joe Biden going to misspeak? Because while we think he's been a really good president, it's hard to run on his record when people are focused on his age. They're excited to finally, and also like let's be clear here, Donald Trump's record, like his best move recently against prosecutors, is to fall asleep and fart. Right? Like that's what he did, I think, at 2 days of his recent trial. The guy got 34 convictions. He does not fare well against prosecutors, and Kamala Harris is a prosecutor. So I think she's the right candidate for this, and people noticed that right away. But also they wanted clarity and they wanted to be pumped. They didn't want to wait a month. So anybody suggesting that has bad instincts and should feel bad about it.
So yes, a couple of points. Not only did she raise, are you kidding me, sums of money? It's over 100 million at this point. It's from more than 800,000 individual donors. Yeah. Right. So it's not like five guys going, finally, here's your cash. It was people going, holy cow, this is amazing, right? Broad grassroots support, state parties coming in, and endorsements were quickly coming from her potential rivals.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't, Bernie Sanders going, oh, well, never mind, taking it back. It was, Mark Kelly, Gavin Newsom, people like that.
The Sierra Club endorsed her last night.
Go Sierra Club.
One of their board members did miss the endorsement call because when he picked his kids up from daycare, one of them, or from camp, his younger daughter had lost one of her toys and he had to look for it. So he may have missed that. Whoops. But besides that, all the rest of the board members were in favor.
Thank God it didn't come down to you play the vice presidential role in the board of the Sierra Club. But I want to get to your point of reality TV, though, because you actually quite accidentally hit on something I think very interesting that also brings up Roland Barthes. And I've been waiting for the moment to bring up Roland Barthes.
Man, I missed this.
I think our listener might not have. I think the thing that defines modern conventions better than anybody happened to be the Republicans defines them was Hulk Hogan, the pro wrestler at the Republican convention, ripping off his shirt. More people watch pro wrestling than actual wrestling. Aaron Sorkin wanted actual wrestling on stage. People don't watch that. People want the theater of wrestling, right? They want Hulk Hogan. It's spectacle masquerading as sport. We know the outcome, but it's going to be loud, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we want out of a convention, and that's what we're going to get. The delegates are going to get online. They're going to get on a Zoom and raise their hand and go, okay. And then we're going to have there be balloons and puppies and convention couture. Amazing. I have to props to the Trump people. They are like dressmakers and clothing makers did right by them. That's what conventions are about, the spectacle of the sport, not the actual sport.
Mm-hmm. No, even there, like if we were still doing this podcast regularly, which we should, we probably would have had a week where we got to talk about, or at least a couple of days where we got to talk about his speech.
Which one? The first 30 minutes or the second 60 minutes?
Exactly. Because the first 30 minutes where he was trying to establish the new tone read to me like Rodney Dangerfield trying to do a period drama. Like he was trying to sound unity and somber, and he could tell that he was not able to deliver that. So then he switched back into shtick and did campaign rally stuff the next hour because Trump is just going to be Trump. Yeah. And again, part of the real I think Kamala's going to crush it, because now rather than it being a rerun of 2020 when they're both 4 years older, and a real question about will this be a story about is Joe Biden too old to keep doing it, or a story about whether or not we're actually going to go back to Trump, or whether this administration will keep running. Kamala Harris gets to run on the record of the administration without the one flaw that people were complaining about. And that means that we can actually compare these two candidates. And Donald Trump is convicted of 34 felonies, and we still have not had the trial, thanks Supreme Court, about him, the whole insurrection that he ignited. That comparison, once you actually have the culture on her side, and look, neither you nor I listen to Charlie XCX, but the campaign is doing a great job of feeding into pop culture icons who are already stepping up and saying, Kamala, the line is Kamala Harris is Brad, and neither of us understand that, but all of our students probably do.
I'm so many things confuse me. I'm glad, by the way, that Gen X is finally getting its due. I was going to be concerned. We had Trump and Biden, and then we skip right to JD Vance. Once again, Gen X left in the cold. But no, we're getting our due. So I'm feeling like there's going to be Breakfast Club references. I'm looking forward to Joy Division being played at the inaugural ball.
You see the clip of her talking about records? She stopped by a record store.
Yes.
It's great. Thank you.
Going old school. But I do think I am going to pick a bit of a fight with you. I do think there are a lot of things that people aren't going to like about Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. We've got a year-long campaign telescoped into roughly 2.5 weeks. Raise a bunch of money, get a bunch of elite support, tell a story of growing momentum, line up endorsements, all the things. Defining the candidate. Nobody knows who Vice President Harris is. You and I know, because we get paid to talk about this kind of nonsense for a living. The Trump campaign out of the box is defining Harris. They're saying we were surprised. This is shocking. They made a joke during the convention that they weren't going to agree to a vice presidential debate because that would be unfair to whoever Kamala Harris chose as her running mate. Mm-hmm. They made a crack about this a week ago. Mm-hmm. um, they're defining Harris. Everything you dislike about Biden, inflation, Afghanistan withdrawal, and President Biden put her in charge of the southern border, and nobody is happy with the southern border. So they're going to saddle her with all of Biden, plus immigration, and plus these bananas conspiracy theories. We've already got some birtherism going on, right? So that one reason the Democrats have to coalesce around Harris early is they need to explain to the American people who she is. But I think there's a whole lot that the Republicans are going to be telling the American people they really don't like about her.
I mean, we'll see. It's been a year, so this is going to be a dramatic change from our usual vibe. I'm way more optimistic than you, like way more optimistic, and the reason is,
That is weird.
I mean, yeah. So like, I think you're right.
I've also been the director of SMPA for a year. So
What's that?
I've also been the director of SMPA for a year. So.
Okay, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. But I've been me for the past year, so
Oh okay. Yeah, no, huh?
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
the
you
reason
win.
I'm more optimistic than you though is the opening lines they've been trying have been sinking like lead balloon. Like you're right that they're gonna attach her to the border. They're gonna try to attach her to all the policy lines that they had against Biden. But their best real line against Biden was again the caricature they had drawn of him just being old and out to lunch.
Yeah.
And her being a multiracial black woman means that the caricature that their base is going to draw, and by their base, I mean like people who are in the party leadership, is going to be a stark reminder of what weird creeps they are, right? Like it is going to be at least as much misogyny as they had against Hillary Clinton. I'm sure they're going to be trying out lines like, "Oh, she's a DEI candidate."
Well, they already are. That's
Yeah.
already a talking point among Republicans in the House.
The reason that's not going to work very well is she's the vice president.
Right.
Right? Like it's true that people don't really know who Kamala Harris is because vice president, you never really know who the vice president is. Like their job is to stay out of the way mostly. So there will be a process of introducing her and making her look cool. And again, like all of pop culture kind of has her back on that. Like the coconut memes are wild and I'm into them. And that's for the 40 somethings. You're not familiar, you're not coconut pilled yet?
I don't get out much, Dave.
Come on, man. Oh, come on. Okay, we're gonna need to get you coconut pilled.
Okay.
So you are gonna be living in the context of what came before. Like there's great material out there of essentially over the past 3 weeks, while people with opinion columns were spinning up these weird fantasies, most people online who like the Democratic Party were saying like, no, just make this simple, like let's go with Kamala Harris, and then started ginning up serious enthusiasm for her, including this clip where it's a quote from her mom that she gave at a interview once about how her mom used to say, "Hey, what, did you just fall out of a coconut tree? You live in the context of all that came before you." And it's like a little corny, and basically the entire internet decided, no, we love that. So like the coconut tree emojis have been the way that everyone signals for weeks now that they like Kamala Harris. People are losing their mind on it. Like TikTok really likes her, and like what is left of social media, Instagram, like really likes her. So like there's going to be an awful lot of cultural branding that is done for the campaign in a way that harkens back to Obama 2008. Like I do not think we've had a candidate since Obama 2008 that mass culture decided to adopt and cheer for the way they're already cheering for her. And against that, we're going to have like Ben Shapiro and like obnoxious, like the whole manosphere is going to be gearing up against her and like saying weird, creepy stuff in ways that I think is going to fall really flat because it's mostly going to remind people like, oh yeah, you're creeps and we didn't enjoy living through this the first time. We don't want to do it again. So like I'm pretty optimistic because I actually think the lines they're going to try out, like they're going to be excited to try out to her and that amplify best with their base also make them look like weird creeps to everybody else.
Yeah, I mean the early the DEI candidate stuff is clearly falling flat. I had this conversation with a Republican operative a year or so ago. He said, "Well, Kamala Harris can drag down the ticket. She's, you live by identity politics, you die by identity politics." And I was like, she was elected statewide in California twice. She was like the problem people had with her in the primary in 2020 was she was too conservative because she was tough on crime as a prosecutor and an attorney general.
Yeah,
Like,
the
what
line
on
is
earth
model
are
on
you?
the cop. Like that kind of works
Right,
well against your criminal.
right. Like this is not. I mean, if I were the Republicans, I wouldn't change the messaging. I would just amplify the immigration piece.
Yeah.
But clock is ticking. Let me check my phone. I just want to make sure we don't actually have a vice president yet. Stuff's moving fast. I don't know. Barbara Streisand's offering a 100% match. Yeah, I don't know. So, VP nominee.
Mm-hmm.
That was a question, Dave.
I'm actually, I really like Buttigieg as the pick. I don't think he's going to be the pick.
What?
Yeah.
This is
Yes.
what?
I'm right. I don't know if she's going to go with him, but he would be the right pick.
What? So I'm a Buttigieg fan. I wrote him a check. Like when he ran the first time, I like how he talks about America. I like how he talks about politics. He's super smart. I
made fun of him the first time. I was not on the Buttigieg train last time.
I know. You said there are two kinds of Democrats: those who support Elizabeth Warren and those who don't support Elizabeth Warren yet.
Yes, I did, and I also referred to him as three kids in a trench coat during one of the debates.
That's good. That's good.
The reason why I really like Buttigieg is I think it's a very good idea to the administration has a very good record.
Yeah.
And what has been difficult for them is that they haven't been able, Biden has not been able to run on his record because he can't get people to pay attention to his record because of his age. Yeah. And a lot of what I like about Harris, she already has the party united behind her, and it means that they can be proud of this past 4 years compared to the 4 that came beforehand. Because one of the ways that this was already going to be an unprecedented election is we very rarely have the sitting president against the previous president, right? Trump doesn't get to play the change card. Everyone knows what he'll do because he did it before and it was terrible. And then he mismanaged COVID. So I think it's an excellent idea, particularly at this late date, for them to be running on the record of this administration. And if you pick Buttigieg, that means that it is one of the cabinet officials and the VP coming together and saying, we are the next generation of the party carrying forward what we've been doing and doing it even better. I think that's just a really clean message in what is otherwise a really noisy situation.
Interesting. Okay, I want to set aside the weird politics of this, the weird Dave Karpf politics of this suddenly becoming me. I like the Buttigieg. I think he's super smart. I like how he thinks and talks about politics. His father's a Gramsci scholar, which I just think is super interesting. But if I'm looking at what you want in a VP, typically, as you know, as a political scientist, VPs don't matter. But in this case, everything matters. So what the heck? One of the reasons Trump picked Vance, I think, is because he had access to absurd sums of money. Dems don't need that at this point, which takes Pritzker off the table, because what Pritzker brings to the table is are you kidding me money? So you want a Democrat who could leave their current job and not hurt the party, which takes out Beshear of Kentucky, because there's no way a Dem replaces Beshear in Kentucky. You want
what? I think he can't run for re-election, I think.
You're thinking of Cooper in North Carolina.
Oh, I thought it was also Beshear was terminated.
But also Beshear was also just reelected though.
Oh yeah. So
you want to keep him in office for another couple of years. It's got to be somebody who the vice president knows and gets along with, because this is an arranged marriage, an arranged shotgun wedding somehow, weirdly. So my thinking in that line, in that vein, would be Mark Kelly of Arizona. He's been vetted within an inch of his life because he's an astronaut, right? Those folks are vetted all the time. Democratic governor would replace a Democratic replacement for him. It's a seat I think he'll get reelected to in the Senate, but the Democratic governor would replace him. Second choice, governor of North Carolina. He's termed. He's up this cycle. And apparently he and the vice president know each other from when they were both attorneys general. And that matters. That kind of, you got the Biden-Obama vibe, the Gore-Clinton vibe, you got to be able to get along. And then the third is obviously Shapiro of Pennsylvania.
I'd be fine with any of those. I actually, for me, Kelly's lowest on the list just because Arizona is still so tight and chaotic that I would rather keep him in this. I don't want to move anybody out of the Senate. So I can see the argument for Cooper. Cooper hasn't really been on my radar. Shapiro hasn't really been on my radar. And also, again, Democrats having somebody who is popular and competent in a swing state to govern it, I don't really want to take the guy out of there.
Right.
So the three, I would prefer Cooper. But again, then we need to introduce Cooper and hope that he plays real well. Yeah, like I don't think it's gonna be Buttigieg, but I think Buttigieg would be a really smart play.
That's interesting. I'm not sure I agree. I don't have to. I'd have to think about that. I have to think about that. I mean, certainly ideologically, I line up. I would love a Harris Buttigieg administration, but I think so. Well, let me push back on Kelly a little bit. As you know, I know Arizona politics reasonably well. Um, because the Democratic governor would appoint his replacement, that person wouldn't be up until 26.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that would be a reasonably good seat. And he's a known commodity. There's just going to be no surprises with Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent he can, to the extent, and it might put Arizona back in play. He's well liked, he's well regarded. A lot of my Democratic friends write off Arizona as a red state with an occasional Democrat getting elected. But this is a state that elected Janet Napolitano several times. Again, has a Democratic governor, has elected Mark Kelly. When I was when I was a staffer for part of the Arizona delegation, we were split evenly, half D's and half R's. And I think Kelly helps put that in play. Normally, a vice presidential candidate wouldn't do it, but I think he puts it in play a little bit. And then I think I also like Cooper a lot, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's dealt with a divided legislature, and I think that they know each other and they work well together matters because there's no getting used to each other, right? Because this is 100, and by the time this airs, it'll be 100 and I think 3 days. You've really got to like who you're sitting next to, and then if it works, you got to be together for 4 years. And I think the fact that Cooper and Harris know each other from when they were attorneys general, I think probably matters. Probably matters. Other political predictions. What else is one thing I want to talk about? Mm-hmm. Down ballot. Mm-hmm. So for a while, had we been doing the podcast, we would have been talking about the opposite of coattails, right? Down ballot races pushing Biden over the finish line. You're voting for us in these local races. While you're up, vote for the old guy. Now we might be back to coattails. And apparently down ballot races are really benefiting from a fundraising surge and energy surge as well. You've got people across the country now wanting to campaign with the top of the ticket. What are the down ballot effects of a Harris candidacy? I mean, having just told you, I'd like you just to agree with me and we can move on.
We mostly agree. Look, it's exciting, right? Like having a party base that is fired up and thrilled, like both believes they're going to win and is thrilled to win, matters a lot because this election can now go back to being what every election since 22 has been, every special election, everything, which is about Roe, right? Like we are running Kamala, the VP, who is also Kamala, the cop, against the sex predator, who I keep forgetting the exact term for it because while he was not convicted of rape, he was adjudicated rapist. That's right, because he was found liable in a civil case for defaming the woman who he raped, and the judge had to say, "Yeah, no, we have found you to have raped her." So her against the rapist who put the people in office in the Supreme Court who overturned Roe. This can go back to being the funneling of women's fury at that specific guy. And that has mattered for every race since 2022. I think it's going to go back to mattering now. And it was the dampening effects of people not being entirely sure that Biden could do another 4 years of this was, I think, holding that back. And it was certainly impacting the coverage, right? The story of this campaign was the two old guys. How are we doing this again? Oh God, can he do another 4 years? And now the story of this, I think, is going to be women's righteous anger and refusing to go back any further.
And once again, Black women saving the Democratic Party.
Once again.
All right, we are just about at time. This is a special pod. Any parting words of wisdom? Special podism, whiz.
I have 2 words of wisdom.
Two words of wisdom.
2 phrases of wisdom.
That's a lot of words, Dave.
That's what I'm known for.
I have a tome of wisdom.
The first thing is I just want to remind people there is actually a lot of time between now and Election Day. Right? You have over 100 days between now and Election Day. Every other democracy on the planet runs their elections in like 6 weeks to a month. Right? Like this is actually much longer than any other democracy needs. There is plenty of time. There's not a rush. And the other thing I just want to note to listeners is, hey, tell your friends, share, because if this does record numbers, maybe I can get Peter to bring this podcast back more frequently.
I was talking to a newscaster the other day who pointed out that Italy might have two elections between now and November.
Yeah.
My last reminder is dart throwing monkeys are statistically better at political predictions than people like me and Dave. It's been great fun.
Dart throwing monkeys are better than you at actually so many things.
That's true. That's really very true. And yet, you guys voted for me to be the director of SMPA. So joke's on you.
Better you than me.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, because you didn't tune in, you didn't hear it. So if you're tuning in, I'm thanking you. And if you didn't,
Thank you, listeners. We missed you, and we missed you.
good night, everybody.
Bye, folks.